Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Line Change, the NHL betting podcast from the Action Network. My name is Michael Leboff. Joining me, as always, are my friends Tim Kalinowski and Nick Martin. Together, the three of us will break down an 11-game slate on Tuesday night. We'll also be back on Wednesday and Thursday morning to break down those slates too. But for these bigger slates, we love to start with our favorite underdogs, and we'll do that here. There were a few to choose from, I think. It is an interesting handicapping journey on Tuesday night because there are a lot of games that feel similar, but there is one I think that ends up being the drama headliner of the slate, and that's Ottawa in Arizona, which Senators at Coyotes jumping to the top of the page. You don't hear that every day, but Nick, your favorite dog here and is in this game. It's a little bit of a stretch, but I think it's worth getting to this game right off the top. So I'm happy to break it down.
Yeah, they're a slight dog some places Monday. I don't think they will be come game time. The thing with this is I was already close with thinking the Senators had value here. I just couldn't do it because this road trip's been so hideous. But I still just look at the current rosters on paper and think that the Senators should be able to be a favorite here. And then you look at their underlying results recently are still pretty good, which has been a bit of a disaster. We looked into I passed on the Senators in St. Louis because of the St. Louis angles and getting a new coach and all that. And who knows if it would have mattered in the end anyways, because the Senators were horrific. I mean, the last three games has really just been kind of the nut bottom of how bad they can show. But just the new coach thing, it's not just that, but I think it is really relevant in this spot that they did fire DJ Smith, because that was a group that looked really checked out. Like they were over it. I mean, I guess they showed a little life at the start versus the Stars, but you could just see the resolve was gone. So I just think it's a good time to pick on that new coach bounce idea, because this is already a roster that I think, given so many other variations of this season and even just a few games, would be a favorite in Arizona. I hate just picking on our Yotes. They're competing really, really hard, but you can also see the goal scoring's dried up. It's coming really tough for them right now. They ran probably pretty good, I'd say, to get both points versus San Jose. That was a bit of a win that could have gone either way. I thought both goal reviews were completely fair, but I mean, you take two goal reviews to grease by the Sharks 1-0. Same kind of story versus Buffalo. It's just a team, they're finding ways and they're doing the right things. Credit to Turigny, because like we've talked about, they're depleted. The roster's not that good right now. But that's the thing. I think if you look at this spot, and the Senators are going to bring it, hopefully, which I hate counting on because it's just been a nightmare this year. But I just think you got to make the Sens here. And just one of those things, they'd be a favorite. You got to make the Sens a favorite here is what I should be saying. And I think if the year had gone any differently at all, they would be. So it's just kind of the right time to buy low on them and just kind of got to sell on the Coyotes here. I hate it, but I think it's all just the right line of thinking.
Yeah, I'm gonna save my thoughts on this game, which is essentially pick 'em as we record on a Monday afternoon. I'll save my thoughts to the end of the show. Tim, anything here on Coyotes and Senators?
Yeah, I bet Ottawa before the DJ Smith news because my handicap was essentially I've been waiting for this coach to get fired for 3 weeks, and Ottawa's schedule does not get easy after this either. They go at Colorado, Pittsburgh, at Toronto, Buffalo. And so I was saying to myself, I'm looking for a spot to kind of back them one last time, I was going to say. And then if DJ Smith was fired the next morning, had they lost, I would have felt okay about, betting them. It's kind of like a one last chance, Ottawa, before, you fire the coach. So then I got kind of a free roll dealt to me and that they did fire the coach. So yeah. And then I like it even more because of the new coach bounce, but it was more about the spot for me here, Ottawa. Yeah, the spot for me here and being able to justify why I'm backing a team that's been pretty impossible to back. So yeah, I guess I was ahead of it on the coach firing.
Yeah, they've been horrific, and there's no secret here that I have some resentment towards them because that was one of the futures I gave out this summer was that I got sold on this team finally. I thought they'd make the playoffs. I thought they'd turn it around. It pisses me off that they didn't. It's honestly gonna be one of the worst futures I've given out in, on this podcast and in my time with Action. So it does really piss me off. But
Slightly worse than Jack Campbell and Vitek Vanacek to win the Vezina Trophy.
it's
Slightly worse.
close. It's funny too. Like it opened up for them from when we gave it out. The line came all the way down with the Vazzy news and stuff, and now it's just. But at the end of the day, like the reason we thought that is because of the roster being what it is now, and this is the time you go into like a depleted Arizona team, which is competed really hard. But like if you're Stützle and Kachuk and all these guys, like step up and win a game. And I think they deserve more criticism. Like I looked at Kachuk, he's below a point per game. He's at 21 and 27, and he just doesn't seem to have to wear it the way these other guys do. So I don't know. I think these guys kind of, they have to step up. They owe us some goals and some points and a win here. So yeah, I've had enough of the Sens, but I think it's the spot.
My favorite underdog, I like St. Louis. They are sitting at the moment as a plus 150 pooch in Tampa Bay, taking on the Lightning. This goes a little bit further than the new manager bump, but St. Louis has been better since the Berube firing, just like a little sharper. And this Lightning team still, like, they're flawed. No matter how you look at it, they are kind of that team that can beat anybody because of their talent level, but they can also lose to anybody on any given day because of their leaky defense, and the process just isn't there. And the depth, of course, has just been hammered away at since the Stanley Cup run. So this Blues team should be feeling itself. I like the number. I just don't want to go. I should say I do want to keep going against the Lightning when you're getting dealt these kind of numbers. Nick, anything here on Blues and Bolts?
Yeah, I think you've got the right take. I lean with the Blues at this number for sure. Yeah, that Lightning team just is not defending at all right now. It's just, and we're seeing a lot of teams do what they did in Edmonton, but I thought the game in Calgary has to be a pretty big disappointment. I get they won the Oilers game, but you win a game, what was it, 7-4 with one of the goaltending performances of the year. So, yeah, I think you're right. The price is there.
Yep.
I didn't hate the over here either. I think the avenues are kind of there. I mean, they're there every Lightning game right now, but the Blues Top Gunners are getting hot, and feels like there's some life there. And you look at that Lightning power play, it feels like you can't really set a total high enough in these Lightning games sometimes.
Yeah, Leboff, when you said that, the number for just Tampa's so volatile, they're just, all of us have had a really hard time figuring out who they are. And this number surprised me because I do think because of that, these two teams are closer than the number indicates, but I'm not on the Blues because I worry that I'm jumping in too late on the new coach Sugar High. I mean, that's not the only reason that they would win this game, but I, for some reason, have it just in my head that Tampa can't be this unsteady, but like, they have, so that's why it's a pass. There's no way you could lay that with Tampa Bay, in my opinion. It's kind of Blues or nothing.
Oh yeah, I think
exactly.
Every time right now the Lightning are getting a lot of credit for what they've done in the past because this team's just really not looking that great. Like they have some legitimate flaws down the lineup. The depth isn't there, like Mike said. I mean, really, you've just got Kucherov dragging the team, and they can win games on that front. And like same thing, underlying results last 15 games. Right at league average. It looks like that. I watched this team. I don't really think it looks like a team that's anything but that. You can see the defensive flaws. So yeah, I agree. I don't think you can back the Bolts like they were who they were. It feels like you just keep, if you're doing that, you're just thinking, is this team really going to fall further down the playoff race?
Yep.
And then they kind of do. So
the Bolts are kind of who people think the Oilers were early on this season. Like that's actually what the Bolts are. It's just a team is so top heavy. Everything else looks terrible. Obviously the goaltending is a little different, but yeah, I think it's in a weird way, like this plus 150 price is kind of the sweet spot, I think, for both betting on and betting against Tampa. Like when they are laying this kind of wood, against a team like St. Louis, you want to go against them. But when they are, plus 150, they can beat anybody because they have the goalies and the top guys to pull these kind of upsets like they did in Edmonton.
Yeah, you put that really well. I think that's a good way to look at it. And I had them against Edmonton a couple nights ago or whatever. And even when they, win that game, it's like that was not my handicap of how they were going to get there. Like it's even when you're like seem to be right about them, they're confusing.
Yeah. All right, Tim, you got an original 6 matchup for your underdog.
Yeah, I guess I'm the only idiot here that's going to try this again. The New York Rangers against the Toronto Maple Leafs. The Rangers are a slight underdog here. We all tried this exactly 6 days ago and loaded up on the Rangers against Toronto playing a back-to-back. They had the flu, this and that, and the Rangers just completely no-showed. This board, I have a hard time finding a lot of bets I like, let alone a lot of underdogs I like. So it's not by any means my play of the day, play of the week, play of the year, anything like that. But I think it's not a bad idea to back the Rangers here to get another shot at, the egg that they laid against Toronto a week ago. And Toronto still has problems. They still have been sick. It's been well documented. They still are leaky defensively. Like these two teams are close, and I would just like to roll the dice on the Rangers getting another shot here against a Toronto team that's not by any means perfect.
Yeah, I think this line is giving Toronto a little bit too much credit for that win against Pittsburgh, because the game before that was them falling behind 5-0 to the Blue Jackets. And I know the game before that was the Ranger game, which they played really well. But then the game before that, the night before that, was an Islander game where I think the Islanders actually outplayed Toronto up until like the last 5 minutes. So with Toronto's goaltending being what it's at, I know Martin Jones has been pretty good out of the gates for them since Woll went down. The defense is still banged up. I know they got Liljegren back, but you're still, dealing with some missing bodies there. I think that the Rangers' defensive form, just big picture wise, should be the difference here, and they should be able to score with Toronto. Their special teams, their power play is just as good, and they've got the big guns as well. So yeah, there's a lot of things that these two teams do similarly well, and then you look at the margins, and I think the edge goes to the Rangers. So I like the Rangers here as a slight dog too. Nick, anything on Rangers and Leafs?
Yeah, I think Tim summarized it pretty well. Like we were on the Rangers last week, but that was a clear off night. Those happens. It is what it is. I feel like you just flush it. You said the Rangers got their big dogs. I don't think their big dogs are anything like what Toronto has when you're talking about like Zibanejad matching up with Austin Matthews. But New York's decor is almost like to a man better when Miller's back and playing well, which he should be here. So that was the other thing. One body doesn't mean that much, but he was out versus Toronto too. So that's another really crucial guy you get back. I think he teed it up well. The Rangers kind of have a way better back end here. They got a better goaltender. I think it feels right. I just don't know if I want to do it. It's one of these, there's a lot of these ugly spots on this slate.
Yeah, actually, and now let's go to the big board. We'll talk about one of those ugly spots. The Minnesota Wild, they're plus 160 in Boston. The Bruins are minus 192, and the total 6. The Bruins are still picking up points, and they're doing what they do, and they're winning the big moments. They're clinical. They're scoring on the power play, at least against the Islanders, and they're getting huge saves and great goaltending. But they are so banged up in such important places, and the Wild are playing better. Their defensive numbers are quite good right now. The problem is I was looking so forward to betting the Wild in this spot because I figured John Hines would give the start in Pittsburgh to Marc-Andre Fleury, and then Philip Gustafsson, who's been the hottest goalie in the league since the middle of November, would get this start. But the opposite has happened. I still would like to look at the Wild here, even on the back-to-back, but so much juice has been taken out of this bet for me, Nick.
Yeah, I fully agree. I think you look at Boston, you have to give so much credit to the coaching. and everyone just stepping in and knowing what they need to do because yeah, they're thin down the middle right now. It's
And
doesn't look
on
like
the
a
blue
roster
line,
that can
like
be this good. Yeah, I mean, yeah, like playing games without McAvoy, he's so good. But yeah, I agree. Like the Fleury thing really, really flip-flops it. And now you're talking about like a disgruntled Fleury who's maybe going in like a bit of a weird headspace. I don't think it should have been as huge a deal as it was to that he ended up sitting on Monday. But also, I wouldn't have done it because what's the point? You're going to play the goalies one night anyways. It felt like a weird thing to do,
yeah,
honestly, from Hines.
especially a
Just
new
because,
coach. Yeah, like it's
like, I get that you start your starter the first night more often. So I see that line of thinking, but Boston's the harder game. You're always going to split it. Like, it just felt like one that was like, why are you doing this? So it just, even if it kind of should be your call anyways, if you think like it's not worth it just to play him for the narrative, I just didn't really see it. And yeah, the Wild, they're playing pretty damn well. So it looked like a wild spot if you're getting Gus to try to eke out a win. And we know these numbers would have just sat exactly where they were. So it kind of does suck that it went that way.
Yeah, Leboff, you laid it out exactly what my mindset was in looking at this game. I kind of looked at the schedule backwards. I had seen the Bruins spot first before I realized that the Wild were going to be on the second half of a back-to-back, then the goaltending thing. And I really wanted to fade the Bruins because of all the things that we just mentioned. But I think honestly, from what I just gathered while listening, the Wild might be showing their hand in that they're kind of punting this second half of the back to back, right? Like, the new coach type of bounce thing. It's like, hey, we're going to get our wins when we can. We feel like we have a better shot in the first half of this back to back. Maybe they're going punt mode on the second half. That's kind of the message that I feel. And so maybe I've flipped here and by the start of it, I'll take a Bruins 3-way, but that's just because of what I've got from what you guys said. I'm so pissed. I wanted this spot so bad, but that's kind of been indicative of this slate, this card on Tuesday. Like every time we think it's going to happen, you check your notes a few more times. It's like, oh, it doesn't line up the way I wanted.
yeah, it kind of feels like a good representation of like where the league is kind of at too. Just there's so many balls in the air all over the place right now. Like the Avalanche trade Tatar and just kind of out of the blue, the gold Phoenix Copley goes on LTIR, Antti Ranta is waived. Like nobody, it feels like three teams have a settled goaltending situation. There's just so much noise out there, and that's what happens when you get into the dog days of winter.
Yeah.
It
And the
definitely,
league is just so damn close. Like if
yeah,
you look at the teams that are right at the bottom, so many of them are like the type that if they kind of click, like the Wild are still down there, the Oilers are still down there, even the Sens, if they
Senators, yeah,
play to their
like
potential,
yeah,
it's like they can still beat these teams. So it's just so marginal when
yeah.
with all that's going on.
Like if the Senators could go on an 8-1-1 run right now and be like 4 points out of the playoff spot, let's say at the
It's
All-Star
tough.
break.
The
No more bat
Devils
nine.
won 8 out of 10 there, and nobody even noticed because they didn't wiggle.
Yeah, it's just it's nuts. It does feel like I'm working on trying to dig into the numbers. It's a little tough to do, like the amount of games that are going to overtime this season compared to others. Because to me, it feels like a lot. But I just haven't gotten to the nuts and bolts of the numbers just yet. I'm still working on it, and that kind of leads into the parity angle. All right, next up is a closely line match between the Golden Knights and Carolina Hurricanes. Vegas traveling at plus 105, Carolina minus 125. The over under 6.5. The first thing I thought when I saw this game was I could have sworn these two teams have already played each other in Carolina this season, but I was wrong. Um, the Knights, I think, in that same way with you're giving credit to the Bruins, Nick, I do think Vegas deserves some credit too. They're humming along. They're picking up wins, 7-1-2 in their last 10. The process looks pretty decent. By my eyes, by the numbers, the defensive numbers are really good. Over their last 10 games, only the Wild have conceded fewer grade A scoring chances. The goaltending's fine. They're scoring. I I do think this number looks a little high uh, on Vegas still on the road against a Carolina team that we all are just waiting to catch up. Kochetkov is an absolute nightmare to bet on. an absolute nightmare to bet on right now. So
Well,
I'm
he's
gonna
kind of
pay.
hot too,
I
but
know
mainly
that
just
that's
because
what's
they're not
scary.
giving up anything.
That's what I'm
Yeah, it is.
scared
And they're
about,
not gonna
right?
be able to do that versus
Right?
Vegas.
Yeah.
No, I agree. And I mean, credit to us, right? Looking at the team on top of the standings that won the cup and realizing they're good.
Yeah, right.
Really hard to give that team credit. But
But we were a little tough on them, I think, early on in the
no,
year, and I think
and this is
now
the
we can
thing.
start to say like this team has started to show like some serious bones about it more than
Yeah,
they
and
were off their hot start.
it is what like this is just one of those things too. Like when we talk about how the league is so marginal, like this is, I mean, the Knights are 21-6-5. They got to go in and play the most annoying team in the league to play against, probably. Like you don't hate that your shots go in and what it is, but I don't think teams like going into Carolina where they know it's just going to be a complete just war to get anything off and all of that. So yeah, I think that's the thing here is just I still think Carolina, like if you look at it, they're basically playing the way they play now. And they've got Svechnikov back. Kochekov's numbers, counting that Caps game, which I thought Carolina was going to just smash them, are really, really good over the last 5 games. But if you look, the insane thing is his numbers are that good, and the goals that have gone in are still like kind of soft. Like he's got like whatever his save percentage is up to in those ones. It probably shows the stabilization's like better than it has. So I still don't want to like touch them on like the narrative that he's been good because part of it is that Carolina just did the absolute most to allow nothing. They faced the Caps, who can't generate anything, and um, Detroit, a very shorthanded Detroit in that game. I don't really think they can defend better than they have, and I just don't know if I'm sold on Kochetkov yet, which shows how tough it is for Carolina right now too. But um, maybe they do get Svechnikov back. I don't know. I think yeah, it's just not a great spot at all.
Yeah, I went into the week. I went into the week, with Carolina as a team that I was looking to back, but this is not the spot for me. I lean Carolina, but Vegas as a dog like just makes you kind of like who
Oh yeah.
wants it? I don't want to lay wood with
No,
Carolina against Vegas.
Carolina's
Like,
getting their credit here. Like they're a
Yep.
yeah,
favorite
yeah.
over the team on top of the league.
I'm like, give me something else. Give me any other team, please. Like,
Yeah.
ugh.
And I think in a weird way, this next game you can say the same thing about the Devils, right? Like this is a team that we all are kind of circling around, waiting to get the right spots, and then they lay a dud against the Ducks, and now they welcome the Flyers to the Rock, and Philly's a plus 154 underdog, the Devils minus 185, a total 6.5. The Flyers are ahead of the Devils in the standings right now, and I know that we would all just say like New Jersey's a much better team on paper than Philadelphia. Philly's good. We've given them a ton of credit, but we know that New Jersey's a better team to a man. But the edges that Philadelphia has and compared to the edges that New Jersey has in this game, I think make Philly pretty tempting as a big price. The goaltending edge, the fact that Philadelphia just doesn't give up much at 5-on-5, and the Devils are a really good 5-on-5 team, but the Flyers are in a different way very good at 5-on-5, and Philadelphia's penalty killing is awesome, and the Devils have a great power play, but Philly can hopefully run with them. So I don't think it's at a bare minimum, it's not the spot to bet the Devils, but I do think I can be pushed again betting this Flyers team. They've won 2 in a row. They've 7-1-2 in their last 10 and are just there. And I think the question with Philadelphia is just going to come down to injury luck, whether how long they can hang on here. Because like if Sean Couturier goes down or Konechny or key player goes down, I think the equation drastically changes. But until then, like this is still a bet on team, Nick.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think you can play I love the Devils still as a team that should have higher upside, but you can't play them here at minus 180 versus Philly. Like we know how Philly's going to make this game look, I think. So you either take a shot with the Flyers or you don't. I don't love this spot. Like I still think the Devils are getting going. We've talked about how really it has been kind of as simple as just getting Heischer back. They started playing a lot better, but um I still think it's Philly or pass. And I keep thinking too, like the roster is just better than like when I hear you say things like Couturier injury would completely tank them. But that's the same for a ton of teams. You could
Yeah.
say like,
Yeah.
McDavid goes down, the Oilers are screwed. It's like, oh yeah. But I just continue to hear people slight this entire roster like Torts is working with like a Chicago. And it just drives me nuts because they have so many high picks that are now just good players and playing well that I'm like, he's not squeezing blood from a stone the way people think. And some good things are going on. Like Ristolainen is playing much, much better. He looks like a guy who completely has just received good coaching and it's made a big difference in his game. Like everyone always like, the reason he was so enticing to so many teams, you look at his toolbox, like he's freaking huge and he can skate decently for his size. And now you can see like Torts putting that to work and finding out how to make him effective. So there's all this, but I think that's the thing with the Flyers, and it's helped so much on so many of these Flyers bets is like I think it goes beyond coaching that they have just an actual roster that can play. And then you put it with that coaching, and that's where we've just seen them be undervalued all year long. So I don't hate it, but yeah, I'm a little afraid of the Devils.
Yeah, take exactly what I just said about Carolina and put it to this game. Devils are a team I really want to start backing, but the Flyers, it's not a great takes two to tango. And I'm not interested in trying to fade a Flyers team that I think continues to have value and I think continue to give you one of the greatest guarantees in hockey right now. And that's an all out effort. And like
Yeah.
that's terrifying when you're betting a one game in the regular season in the middle of December. Like I love what Philly guarantees. What scares me off of playing Philly is I feel like the books are like begging for Philly money with this line because it's like, and that is what's scaring me off. The Flyers, like I said, one of the best guarantees of a good effort and can go toe to toe with anyone at plus 150. I'm like, what am I getting wrong here?
Oh, I was pissed off that I was passed on them Saturday because Urson got the start.
Yeah.
And then they go out and get a shutout
I
anyways.
know.
And I was like,
That's like his form. The Islanders fixed him when they let him shut it out.
his Nashville and Washington games were pretty mid. Like I think if they had Hart all 3 games last week, they
come away
probably
with,
have 3 wins. But
all right, let's move on to Sabres and Blue Jackets here. Buffalo's laying minus 166 at home. Columbus at plus 140 and a total of 6.5. The kind of the exact opposite of what I was just saying about the Flyers kind of applies to with the Sabres, which is like when the Flyers get into that range where you're like they're so much better than the market perceives them as. They're going to give you this great effort. They're going to play structured. They can hang with anybody at 5-on-5, and there's so many things going for them that you can both see and quantify on numbers wise. The Sabres at minus 170, just whenever they're at that number, you're like, why on earth would I want to bet this team? And I know they're playing the Blue Jackets, but like you can see Columbus giving this team all sorts of issues because the Sabres can't stop anybody. No team in the NHL has allowed more high danger scoring chances at 5-on-5 than Buffalo over their last 10 games. This is a team that has struggled to score and generate more than people thought this season, and now the defense looks like a disaster, and the goaltending isn't good enough to bail them out. Why on earth? I get like there's the Sabres are the better team. The Sabres are at home. But why would I not give a second look to Columbus here, Nick?
yeah, you actually kind of sold me on this even more. I kind of actually glanced by this one, not overly enticing teams, but I think you're right on this one. I'm pretty high on the Blue Jackets here as I think about it. Yeah, the Sabres have been one of the biggest letdowns in the league this year, and I, I guess they had a good game in Vegas but they didn't follow it up there, and you can just see like it's just a team that's really not that good right now. Sounds like Alex Tuck will be out. Jack Quinn will slide in, which is pretty huge potential return, but still, like you look at it, and I just don't see where these teams are that far apart right now. Levi's finding it too, and I think he has the potential to be legitimately good this year still, and I still am not that afraid of this number. And you look at that Sabres back end, Granato's been resisting just doing what works. Like Ryan Johnson looks sick, and he's done well when with Owen Power, who's really struggling. I don't really get how it's so hard to kind of put this together. Everyone's kind of noticing that Ryan Johnson looks pretty good. He's in a bit of a tough spot. I don't know if there's like pressure to play Connor Clifton a lot, but he's not working at all. But that all just goes back to what you're saying is like these are marginal things that you notice when a team's just not that good. Like they can't put the combination together. You listen to Sabres fans, there's just so many complaints. So yeah, it just feels like these two teams are closer than this number right now. So I agree. I think it is a pretty good spot on the Blue Jackets.
I came in here hoping to get sold on Columbus, and boom, there we go. You guys all said it. The number, in what world should the Buffalo Sabres be minus 170? In what world? And I think
Crazy.
that if it's confusing the way we talk about some of these teams, Buffalo's issues, I think we all look at as like issues that are not really solvable in the short term.
Yeah, they're fatal.
Right?
They have fatal flaws. There are flaws, and then there are fatal flaws.
That's the thing. It's just a team that's proving they're not that good. And I think Mike always likes to point out these spots where like you have that win that gets all the attention and people are like, are they getting going? And Buffalo's had so many of
They've
those.
had
Like,
they've had
that
two
win
of them in like the
in
past 2
Boston.
weeks. The
Yeah, and then
Rangers,
they
the
lose
Bruins, and the
Canadians.
Vegas. Yeah, like
And
this
then
is-
yeah, like the Vegas game, you're like, oh yeah, this is a really solid performance. Like maybe they get going. And then the next night versus Arizona, it's like, and the
they're a
thing about that
they're a
is
barnstorming team. They're a team that tours. Like they tour, they go into the fun city, they put on a show, and then now you got to go play in San Jose, and they're like, screw it.
yeah, and I think it's just one of those things too, like when you just talk about how close the league is and how marginal all these things are, that they're just like one of those points. It's like they have, every team has the upside to do the right things in a game and, basically just finish their chances and bring like a sharper performance than the other team, which is what we saw in Vegas. But then one night later, they can't do all those things again. And ultimately, it's just one of those things. This roster isn't that good right now. So,
Yep. And you brought it up with Tampa Bay. Like I think part of the sentiment in the market is that people are just having a tough time fathoming that this darling team everybody was on in the off season could be this bad. Oh, they can't be this bad, so I'm going to bet them here against a truly bad team, a team we knew was going to be bad and is bad. The Blue Jackets are 4 points behind the Sabres. 4. They're 6 goals behind the Sabres. That's a very small gap considering one team is a minus 170 favorite on Tuesday night.
And also looking back, it all makes sense because they were putting all their eggs in the Devin Levi basket. And I still agree with Nick in that he can be good and can be good this year, but it all makes sense of why they suck. They put the fate of their team into this, not just Levi himself, but their goaltending situation was not shored up from the jump. And so unless they get insane goaltending, they're fatally flawed.
well, I almost, Levi's been amazing.
The idea of Levi. He's been
locked
better.
in. Like, I think it just shows the greater problems. Cause the Clifton thing, and it's tough with these projections. Like you look at something like that, I thought Ryan Graves would be really useful. He's been a complete train wreck. Clifton seemed like a decent ad for them. It's been
I wanted Clifton on the Islanders. I was like, this is a good depth piece.
Yeah.
I assumed Mayfield was going to be gone, and I was like, he'd be a very easy kind of bit part player.
Bernardo clearly, switched up a lot of the thinking around the team, and it just gutted them. Like it hasn't worked out at all. They're not playing the same way, and everyone overachieved last year. And then the other thing you talk about too is like Tuck has been quite bad. Really.
And in and out of the lineup.
Yeah. Thompson's in and out. He's not playing as well. He's getting going a little, but it's just, everyone thought Owen Power would get going. I thought he would be sick this year. He hasn't really been. Dahlin's probably still kind of been on the low end of like what we expected from him. So yeah. And then Cousins, we almost slid out of here without talking about Cousins, who really is let down badly. So it's just been a really
all the guys they signed to 8-year extensions have been bad in the season, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, come save us, Devin Levi. Welcome to the NHL. And again, he has been better 100%. And I like the kid, but it's got to be an exhausting first full season in the NHL for him so far. I mean, it has been exhausting.
Okay. So Blue Jackets there for us. On to Canucks and Predators. Vancouver, a slight favorite on the road, traveling to Nashville, -115 on you'd have to pay on Vancouver. Nashville -105. It does look like this is heading towards a pick'em, a true pick'em at -110 on either side, and the total is 6. Uh, here's I don't have anything on this game, but I think a fun way to look at this game just generally is a month ago if you had said, oh, the Predators and Canucks would be a pick 'em in Nashville, you'd be like, no, they're not. It's everybody out for Vancouver. But this Predators team, man, you want to talk about if you want to buy like a Jack Adams flyer, what on earth can you get for Andrew Brunette right now? Because this team is really impressive. Like good on them, man. This is something else. So I would lean towards Nashville here, if anything, but I'm gonna pass Tim.
Yeah, and that works too for the whole narrative. Burnett kind of got done dirty a little bit in Florida and whatnot, and so I could see that kind of being a good narrative. I came in looking to fade Vancouver this week, but I think the line's right. Just about. I want more value I want more bang for my buck if I'm gonna fade this darling Vancouver team. So congratulations, Predators. You're playing too well for me to have value on you here. So probably a pass.
Yeah, I think there's definitely gonna be a lot of people who look at this game and they're like, how is this the price? I'm slamming the Canucks. Like and I think this just looks fair to me. It is what it is. Like the Predators are playing really well. We talked about it when we've kind of always talked about how their underlying results continue to be pretty good. And yeah, like Mike said, I think Andrew Burnett definitely deserves a lot of credit. Nobody thought this team would be that good. Admittedly, I didn't think it was that insane when Burnett got fired from the Panthers. Because I had thought he took over a team that was 9-0 and had a ton of talent. And that kind of proved like it looks more and more like he just really knew what he was doing. You look at what he did as assistant coach last season. I think it just continues to seem like this is a guy who's really, really sharp. And with his offensive details, like that's kind of the thing most of the players talk about is that's where he's kind of a sneaky genius. I think it kind of shows from when he played. But like this Preds team's kind of got some punch and they're playing really good. And now Saros is getting into his rhythm of being dominant. So yeah, they're right there. They could definitely come in and steal our beloved Coyotes wildcard spot or be
Yeah.
a team that hurts them in that race. So yeah, this is and to talk about both Preds games too. Like I tried to fade them on Saturday and what I thought was a tough spot. They just came out and slapped the Caps, and that was a really good game they played on Friday night in Carolina too. So they're in really good form entering this game, and kind of just all indicators are that this team's actually fairly legit, and you can see odds makers respecting that with this price.
Yeah. And Brunette is flying. Like at this point, it's really hard to find a ton of value in the Jack Adams Award. Especially deeper down the board. Everybody's kind of been adjusted. Brunette's still 40-1. So that's one when you consider just like the names ahead of him on the list. That's one that
Yeah.
would.
Well, the thing is, all the go-to narratives are tapped into with Talkett and
Yep.
Laviolette. So until their teams are not so far up the
Yeah,
standings, I can see where they're the big faves.
Yeah, exactly. But he just shouldn't be this far down behind. He shouldn't be behind, guys like Brendamore or Pete DeBoer, some other names on the list too. Like it's hard.
Torts is down to 10-1.
Yeah, and
for the
Torts.
record.
Yeah,
We
Torts
did
is
nail that take because he was.
Nobody
he was like
knows the
30 to
Jack
1
Adams market
14
and the
days
movement,
ago.
the movement of the Jack. It's such a useful talent to have.
Yeah, you end up with a ticket on every coach in the league.
Yeah, exactly.
I know. Well, that's the
It's
thing.
so
It
much
seems
fun.
dumb though, but we're always giving them out at like 25-1. So if you give out, 6, 7.
Yeah, true. Well, and I think too, part of the problem with Burnett is he's not getting fairly graded in terms of like he's overachieving for what they are, but he's not overachieving to like top 5 team in the league, which is kind of
Yep.
like hurting the
These things catch
understanding.
attention quick, though. That's the thing. Like you can circle the Preds as like another team right now where it's like
Yep.
probably 3 more wins and everyone's
Exactly.
like, whoa, look at the Preds. They're way up there. And then they
Yep.
start talking about it.
Precisely. Okay. Avalanche and Blackhawks now. Colorado laying -260 on the road. Chicago +210, total 6.5. I think this number is gonna keep moving towards Colorado too. This feels like one-way traffic and not a bad spot to have some fun with some Avalanche, hat trick scorers or team total over 7.5, stuff like that. Nick, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think I like it because it's just one of those things. The Hawks right now are so dinged up. This is such a bad team. Like this is the worst team in the NHL right now. I'd love to watch them play the Sharks in a series tomorrow. Uh, they the Avs are so, and like the Tatar signing not working out, and this is just drawing extra attention to this right now. But they're so dependent on their top stars. And that's the problem when you go into like Winnipeg and you don't have Cale Makar. Like that's what happens. So it's tough on those guys, but I feel like these are the spots where those guys are just, you're not going to shut them down and they're going to probably still need to find a way to win the Avs the game. So I like it. I think you can keep tapping into like McKinnon and Rantanen, and I mean, who knows? It all depends on the absurd level of juice you're going to see, but it does feel like kind of just a smash spot for all of those guys.
Yeah, and it gets easy for Colorado here at Chicago, Ottawa, Arizona twice, at St. Louis, San Jose, then obviously a layup against the New York Islanders eventually. But I'm glad to hear you guys talk about the Avalanche that highly, because I was a little turned off by just how they can kind of be a little Jekyll and Hyde with teams that are beneath them, and kind of they've tended to take a night off against some of these weaker teams. But even I feel like you're telling me that Chicago, even if even if Colorado falls asleep a little bit, Chicago can't pack a big enough punch to make them pay for it.
I think the Avs, though, while we're kind of on it, and even though we've kind of pumped their tires relative to this game, but like I think when Cale Makar is out right now, like this team, like for the time that he's out, which probably isn't going to be that long, can be power ranked pretty damn low. Like, and I don't mean pretty, like I should say pretty low relative to the fact that I looked and they're still like among the favorites to win the President's Trophy.
Yep.
I would never touch that right now. And all the reasons that we said that they were overvalued in that market at the start of, or like in the off season, have come to fruition, because like the off season acquisitions aren't working out, and suddenly the forward core is what it is, where it's just all the big dogs carrying everything. And I just don't really think that this is a complete enough team right now to get like the credit, to be credited with like the Kings and the Rangers and the Bruins, the Golden Knights, even the Stars, the Panthers, even, who are way undervalued in the market compared to them. I think it's just like it's so tough to ask so much out of those guys. So with Makar sidelined, it's just this team's not looking that good. And then you talk about the goaltending too. The goaltending hasn't worked out. So
Yep.
it feels like it's almost getting a bit into one of those situations where they are going to be a little overvalued just based off the name power and the preseason expectations and the cup win and all that stuff. So we'll watch. I think we've done a pretty good job fading them. Winnipeg went in there and won that game for us last week in Colorado. And I think they're probably still going to be on like the kind of watch to fade list for me.
Yeah, I would agree with you. And I think that they're the team that kind of screams to me that without a reinforcement before the trade deadline, they're on shaky ground. I think like that two center role is still
They need help.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
just and I think
they
the
need
goaltending
help,
too.
and they have to do it because you have
Yep,
the toughest pieces in
exactly.
place. Like you
Which
have
kind
the
of it makes them an
stars.
interesting situation. It's annoying that they aren't drifting, because they're the type of team that had the number drifted relative to what it should be, with the way that they're performing, be like, well, like it's not going to show up just yet, but if this team does say go get Lindholm from the Flames, let's just say hypothetically, like you'd be like, well, they just fixed their major flaw in 1 second and now are an absolute force again.
Yeah, and I mean they're on top of the div.
Yep.
I mean, not by points percentage, Yeah, no, I guess
Yeah,
they're in third by points percentage.
that
So
Central Division is
yeah,
kind of creepy, man. With the the Predators are right there. So
yeah, and the
it's
Wild, they're playing really good hockey
yeah,
now.
yeah,
I think the Avs might dip a bit in January, enough for them to like be crying out for help for that
yeah.
piece. I think it'll eventually come to fruition.
All right, let's keep chomping away at this slate. Our last one to get to before best bets is Los Angeles and San Jose. The Kings laying -258 going to the Shark Tank. Sharks +210, total of 6. We do love our Sharks on this podcast. 5-4-1 in their last 10, man. This is I wouldn't say this is a sure thing on Los Angeles, and the market seems to be agreeing as the number is shortened a little bit on San Jose. But I wish it was a little bit bigger, and I think that maybe the Sharks are getting a little bit. The secret's out that the San Jose Sharks team is not that bad anymore. We kind of saw it with that Jets number a few weeks ago, or last week. People were pointing out like this is where they closed against these teams 3 weeks ago, and now it's +180 instead of +240. So you can then do that exercise again with the Kings here and this number. So it is one I will reluctantly pass on unless one of you guys can make a compelling argument here for our beloved Sharks, Nick.
No, I thought this price looked right to me. They're the Kings are what they are. And this just feels like a good spot too for the Kings depth to have a good night. Yeah, I don't know if I want to do it. I still think it's Sharks or pass. Like you talk about outside of that Avs game on or last night, which kind of got hideous, but that was just one of those things. It was like one of those nights we saw early in the year where it just kind of snowballed and got away from them and the compete level died off a little bit. They're full value to their price though on Friday versus the Coyotes in what was a super competitive game. I still feel like this is just one of those numbers. If you can talk about a team defending competently, yeah, I don't know. Just I don't know who's betting this game on this slate.
they're the Sharks. Like, congratulations, you got too good, and now I can't bet you anymore. Like, you suck the value out. It's like it's funny how betting an entire long season kind of works, right? And it's only really happens in baseball, hockey, obviously, NBA, but I bet more baseball and hockey, and that like you kind of have to reset every so often who your darlings are going to be, because a team like San Jose, it's like, you got too good. Please drop nine in a row again for me to even want to take a look at you. That's what happened here.
Well, and the tough thing about the NHL, and I think this is like this with a lot of stuff, but maybe a little now even like football's like this too, that I think gets confusing is it's so close and marginal, and there's you don't know you're basing, especially when you're just basing the majority off the numbers. Like I think people get annoyed when there's too much flip-flopping and that when you hear that term thrown out there, and it's like, well, the reality is like that's how you kind of have to look at it, right? Otherwise it's like it is what it is, and then you're finding these spots where you're getting crushed and people are like, how did this game go this way? But then when the obvious ones do work out, you hear things like saying how it was such a smash and so obvious and all of that good stuff. So yeah, I think that's just kind of the way the NHL is. It's tough. You gotta really consistently reevaluate, I think.
All right, on to best bets now. We've actually talked about a couple of these games already. So Nick, we'll go with you first. A player prop in the Blues and Bolts.
Yeah, I haven't been doing the player props too much on these because it's tough. You need to estimate the line, which is the most important thing. So it makes it a bit of a gong show. But on this slate, I thought Jordan Kyrou to go over 3.5 shots was my favorite. Typically, these things don't move that much. So I think we'll probably still see close to +110, which is what this was on Saturday when he put up 9 shots and 10 shot attempts versus the Stars. And I know you don't want to move the needle too much off of these kinds of things because that's when you get crushed. But I just don't think that this will move enough. And I like the spot. As we talked about earlier in the show, Tampa Bay really hasn't defended that well. I think it's kind of a sneaky good spot for Kyrou to stay hot. The Blues, I think it'll be a competitive game. They need all the wins they can get. So I kind of like the chances that it's a game script where Kyrie's relied upon to get all his minutes in. And then you just look at the narratives and everything that happened with him this week, and now all of a sudden he just gets to have two huge performances where he showed out. I love it because we know he is so talented, like he's just that good. So I think it's a lot of factors working together to make kind of tapping into Kyrou this game a decent narrative. Like you talk about a game that's going to have a high total, we thought could be sneaky closely contested. Maybe the Blues trail a little bit. Like I think a lot of things work in the favor of this. And you can just see that it's gone to his legs, this whole situation. It worked out good that he got to get some points on Thursday. Then he comes out on Saturday, completely dominates, flies down, opens up the overtime winner. I just feel like everything that's going on, it's working out good. He's going to get a little trust from the coach now. I like it. I think you can target those Blues top line in a lot of ways in this game.
I like Ottawa as a pick 'em, maybe even as a slight favorite in Arizona. This has a lot to do with what feels like a blank slate coming for the Senators after just a dreadful road trip and a dreadful start to the season as well. When you look at the roster and the numbers, you know that the Senators team will trend up. Whether that's a lot or a little remains to be seen, but they should start to go in the right direction. Whereas Arizona they're getting by thanks to some blood, sweat, and tears and good goaltending right now for a depleted Coyotes team that we do love on the show. So
some great coaching.
Yeah, great coaching. Perhaps maybe best coaching in the league. But I do like the Senators here. And Tim, the only game we haven't talked about yet on the slate, Tuesday night on the island, Connor McDavid versus Bo Horvat, Leon Draisaitl versus Simon Holmstrom, Islanders and Oilers. Edmonton laying -135, a total of 6.5. Chew the fat on this one.
I mean, how did we go this long without talking about this game? When you think star power in the league, you think these two teams, I'll tell you that. And with star power comes goals. Over 6.5 in this one for me. In all seriousness, look, I was pissed when this line came out and it wasn't 6 and that it was 6.5, because I feel like I've discovered quite the trend with this Islanders team, and that they're shockingly an over team this season. 18-11-1. Edmonton, on the other hand, 16-11-1 to the over. I feel like so many people just, and I wouldn't blame them if they've been scared off from watching this Islanders team on a night-to-night basis, because they assume that they just try and win 0-0. But that has not been the case, whether it's due to the injuries, whether it's due to the coach not getting these guys what he wants them to do. But the Islanders have been a more high-event hockey team than I think a lot of people realize. And maybe the books got it right here and that they spit out 6.5 instead of 6, but I still like it. Obviously, I don't need to tell you if Edmonton's going to hold up their end of the deal. We expect this team to score goals every time they touch the ice, but they also allow a tremendous amount of chances. Even when they don't allow chances, they allow a lot of goals. So that's how I get to this, Lieboff. Your team here. I don't know if I'm warm or cold on the handicap here.
No, you're right. I was going to bring up that 18-11-1 number for the Islanders, who just they can't defend well right now. It's just not, the roster just isn't conducive for it. They're missing their 3 best defensive defensemen, Mayfield, Polak, and Pelech. They plugged holes pretty well with Mike Riley off the waiver wire and Bortuzzo for a 7th rounder from St. Louis. So they're getting by, but they're outscoring teams right now. Is the only way that they're winning games. And they are maybe the most exciting team to watch on a given night in the NHL. And I don't think people have realized it just yet, that this team is just playing this fire wagon style of hockey. I will go back. I'm probably going to go back to the Mike Riley anytime goal scorer player prop again. He's getting looks every night. He's getting looks, and they need it because it's Dobson or him are the only 2 options on the back end to get pucks through the net. So his number's been long, and I don't hate it here. So over is fine. I think this game has overtime written on it too, like a 4-4 overtime game. The goaltending disparity obviously is going to be there with Sorokin, but then the Oilers offense going against this Islanders defense is quite frightening. So a lot you can kind of have fun with Islanders and Oilers.
You just have to hope the Mike Riley shot goes off an Oiler shin pad,
Yeah.
not an Islander shin pad when it goes in.
Yeah, to Tim, if you thought you were going to see a total of 6 in an Oilers game that isn't versus like a insane, I don't know if there's a team where we see a total of 6 for the Oilers right now, because they're such an, like, this almost looks too easy, I think. But I agree. I still think you can do it for sure. It's just the only like slight fear that I would put out there at all is that I do think the Islanders have scored way above expectations. Like, this isn't a team people thought would just shoot out the lights. And the Oilers have actually defended really well if you look at the underlying results recently. But that's it. That's not enough. I'm just saying I almost thought you might have seen a 7 here. I think you'll see a 7 on the Oilers game on Thursday versus the Devils.
Oh yeah. 9.
So, I mean, I guess those teams just played and it was 7, but yeah, like, and for the Oilers, that's the other part of the problem though, is like, you're not going to defend better than you have. Not at all. I don't think their team's capable of it. And it's not even like that's a slight, because they're actually have defended really well for a long time here. But their goaltending is just terrible, and they have to outscore that. And the Isles haven't been a defensive wagon at all. So yeah, it does seem so likely that these two teams' recent trends can just continue here. We rode the over, which I think every single person and their brother put out there on Thursday with the Lightning. But I think that just kind of summarized a lot of what's going on with this Oilers team. And that a lot of the time, this is kind of what happens. They had an off night offensively versus Florida on Saturday night, but it's one of those things. Who cares? The other thing I'll note too is it'd be kind of interesting to see the way they line up in this game. Like, Draisaitl probably had his worst game of the year on Saturday. He was a complete non-factor. And he was skating. Oh, so it does look like they shook up the lines. They put Nugent Hopkins with Draisaitl and Fogle today at practice. That makes sense, because I was watching Draisaitl skate with Janmark and Fogle, and I was thinking about how tough that is. So that is kind of interesting. I think Kane's going to go up on the top line with McDavid and Hyman, so that could be a guy to target. Yeah, well, I like this take, Tim. I think it has to be done. It's just one of those ones you almost feel stupid if it misses, because it's so damn obvious. But yeah,
I was just, to be fair, I thought there was just going to be a rogue. I just, I've seen
you
some
think Islanders, you think
numbers.
6. I mean, to your point, like with the Islanders, 15 of their last 15 games, 12 have closed at 6 or 5.5, 7 to 5.5.
The oil, though.
5. Yeah, but then you
though,
factor in the oil, and then things obviously get juiced up. All right.
I was trying to think if the Oilers have had any 6s. I don't think they have. They played in Winnipeg, which is a fairly low event team, and it was 6.5. So definitely not for a while.
Oh man,
that's all right. Okay, that does it for this episode of Line Change. 11 games that we talked about in the books. Off the top, our favorite underdogs were Ottawa, the New York Rangers, and St. Louis Blues. Best bets came in on Jordan Kyrou's over in the shot prop market, to over in Islanders and Oilers, and the Ottawa Senators. Once again, for Tim Kalinowski and Nick Martin, I'm Michael Leboff. Thank you for listening, and we will see you again on Wednesday morning.